Dr. Osman, thank you so much for joining us. And first off, since we're approaching a new round of ceasefire talks, what are your expectations regarding its flow? And what are the strategic implications of Israel's threat to intensify its offensive in Gaza if Hamas rejects the Daytoni deal?
Thank you for having me, Salma. Always a pleasure to be with you. It seems that the Israeli government has a conviction that applying military pressure will result in the eventual release of the remaining detainees and the hostages inside the Gaza Strip. However, of course, if you come to judge that methodologically, in a logical manner, we might find that this will not yield the required results, and it will actually lead to the death of the remaining hostages. There are about 59 detainees inside the Gaza Strip. Only 24 of them are alive. However, I think that this is only the announced goal of the Israeli government. The actual goal is much more sinister. It is to destroy what remains of a means of life inside the Gaza Strip in order to render it uninhabitable and to push forward for the so-called voluntary relocation of the Palestinians, which is basically a covert ethnic cleansing scheme.
Mm-hmm. Now, Hamas has also warned Israel if it returns to its aggression on Gaza following the completion of a detainee exchange deal. How do you interpret this warning, and how might Hamas respond to the increased pressure from Israel regarding the detainee negotiations?
It seems that the Israeli army of occupation already is applying a gradual ground campaign inside the Gaza Strip, where they are expanding their areas of control. They have already established the so-called Mirage corridor in southern Gaza, isolating Rafah and severing its connection with the rest of the Gaza Strip. And by that, they have basically annexed about 20% of the entirety of Gaza into a so-called security buffer zone. And now they are expanding their armed incursions, their ground incursions into northern Gaza in the areas of Shaja'iyya, in the areas of Al-Tufah, Beit Lahia, Beit Halul, and others, basically to reduce the geographical territory of the Gaza Strip. And by that, they are applying pressure not only on Hamas, but also on the local civilian population. And by that, they think that they can force Hamas to release the remaining detainees and agree to a ceasefire that is more agreeable and favorable to Israeli terms and ultimate goals from the war of aggression on Gaza. I think this is the Israeli strategy so far, and also, as I said before, it is also a means by which they can force the people to leave the Gaza Strip to relocate to other areas. It's part of the forced displacement scheme that has been pushed forward or proposed by the Trump administration and is being actively implemented by Netanyahu's government.
Mm-hmm. Now, moving on to the Houthis' ballistic missiles at Israel, what are the potential regional consequences of this?
Well, the only regional consequences are more destabilization of the situation in the larger Middle East. Already, the Houthi attacks on maritime routes in the southern Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, and the Gulf of Aden has caused substantial damage to the freedom of navigation in this area. It has decreased from 25,000 vessels annually to slightly less than 10,000 vessels annually in 2024. And this, of course, has prompted the United States to use this as a pretext in order to carry out its own military campaign against the Houthis, which only intensified when President Trump was elected. And now the U.S. military is eviscerating the parts of Yemen that are under Houthi control, and the Houthis are basically being backed into a corner, especially with the increased pressure on Iran, and Iran apparently backing down. And according to some Western media sources, they have already reduced aid to the Houthi movement. So I think that the Houthis are in dire straits, and maybe even local actors inside Yemen might take matters into their own hand and attempt to overthrow the Houthis once and for all in their areas of control. However, and on the other hand, what the Houthis are doing is not really impacting Israel in any way. most of the projectiles they launch against Israel, whether drones or rockets or missiles, get intercepted and shot down midway. One of them was just shot the other day over Jordan, which caused a local fire inside Jordan, which it hardly looks like pressuring the Israelis to me. So its only regional implications will be more pressure on Iran and more pressure on the Houthis themselves, and more harm and damage to the freedom of navigation in the Red Sea.
Lastly, sir, what role might international actors play in de-escalating both the Gaza conflict and the continuous missiles threat from Yemen?
I think that the root causes of all problems is the conflict in Gaza. Once we have a ceasefire in Gaza, a conclusive, definitive ceasefire, we might see a larger lull in the region of some sort. And we have seen that when the ceasefire was implemented, or the truce, for over 57 days, there were no missiles launched against vessels in the Red Sea by the Houthis. There were no missiles launched from Lebanon or Syria or Iraq against Israeli or American targets. So ending the conflict in Gaza serves to de-escalate the entire situation in the region. And I think that the only actor that might actually ensure that is the United States. The United States so far has chosen not to apply any pressure on Israel in order for them to go back to abiding by the ceasefire agreement. And so far they have empowered Israel in all of their escalatory schemes so far. The moment the United States decides to take a different course of action, we might see more calm and tranquility in the region.
Mm-hmm.